Hey everyone, in this video we're going to cover code editor efficiency. Remember that what I show you here, while there are a lot of specifics and I think you can benefit from these, in general you might not have the same needs as me, so try to identify which actions are taking you a lot of time each day. I am going to be doing this on Visual Studio Code on Windows, so I won't be talking too much about how I'm doing things. So for example, if I press left or right on my keyboard, at the top of the screen you will see what keys I pressed, but these might not map the exact same way to you. So for any gaps that you have here, use the cheat sheets, but in general, try to look at what I'm doing and not necessarily how I'm doing it. No further ado, let's get to the demo. In my opinion, the most important command in any program that supports it is a command palette, because it serves as a catch-all for every other command and even commands you might not know about or need to discover. Let's say we have some text typed out here and we want to turn this into JSON highlighting. We can open the command palette and maybe we don't remember what the command is called. We know it has something to do with language, so hey, there it is. So we press enter on that. It brings us to another menu where we can type out the language that we want, and we've now selected our command without even needing to know the shortcut for it. Similarly important are navigation commands. The way that I look at development is that it's some amount of navigating and some amount of editing, and unless you're working on your own code and you happen to be editing at the time, chances are the navigation is going to outweigh the editing. Our main tools for this are going to be navigate to a specific file. So for example, we can go to util.js by typing that here, and navigating to a particular function. So now that we know we're here, we might be able to type something like create a enum and go there. In addition, let's say we were somewhere in a different file in the code base and we had a call to create a enum and we don't know what it does. We might want to navigate to its definition and bring us there directly. Using just those three commands will help you navigate a code base much more easily. Multiple cursors is such a powerful feature and has so many different uses. I'll show you a simple one now, but we'll cover a couple more throughout the video. Let's say I had a list of names and I wanted to turn them into an array. The naive approach here would be to just go to each line, wrap them in quotation marks, type a comma, and we could certainly do that, but let's simulate a much longer list here by just duplicating one of the names. What you might want to do is write a regex, and you might need to struggle a little bit with the regex and figure out capturing groups, but you could certainly do this, and we can replace all of the names with the quotation marks. But what's nice about multiple cursors is it will help in cases where a regex would not work, and it also makes it so that you don't really need to think too much about the pattern. So in this case, I can select every single line at once, break my cursor into each individual line, wrap them in quotation marks, put our comma, join them, and there's our array. Multiple cursors have many ways of using them. You could use the mouse and just drag a box, for example, and you could do this to, let's say, capitalize the first two letters of every person's name. You can select an instance and then find its next version of it. There is this concept of skipping one of those versions. So for example, I could select just the first and the third one. And then there's this feature called soft undo in some editors. Let's say I had selected the first two and I realized that, no wait, I only wanted to select the first one. You can use soft undo to change where your cursors are. So here, if I wanted to select the next line and I realize I went one too far, then I can soft undo just a couple of those selections and then make whatever change I wanted to make. Again, one of the ways that multiple cursors is so powerful is when it can do something that a regex can't do. And combining them with extensions is great for that. I'm going to show you an extension that in Visual Studio Code is called VSCode Eval. And what it does is it evaluates arbitrary JavaScript. So for example, here we have JavaScript hi.repeat10. I can evaluate this and it turns into hi. Likewise, since numerical evaluations are allowed in JavaScript, 50 divided by 2 is 25, I can do that here. And when I combine it with multiple cursors, I could say, let's divide each one of these by 100. That is much simpler to do than going through each individual selection, and it's not the kind of thing we could easily make a regex for. This next extension is one of my favorites. In Visual Studio Code, it's called Toggler, and the way that it works is given a word, you can use Toggler, and it will turn it into its opposite or something similar depending on what you want to do. The way that you customize this is by just specifying arrays of all of those strings that you might want. So here we have all the days of the week, here we have landscape and portrait. So let's say we typed out Monday and we wanted to change it to Wednesday. We just run Toggler on it twice. We can keep doing that. It will keep cases. So let's say it was capitalized. Now it'll turn into the capitalized form of Sunday. And same thing if it were all lowercase, it'll turn into the lowercase form of Monday. It also works with multiple selections. So let's say we wanted to change each of these days forward by 3. we could do that. And again, you can add whatever strings you want, so I can change right to left, up to down, success to failure. Many times while editing, we want to get to a specific line or a specific character on the screen. This next extension is called Code Ace Jumper, and the way that it works is, let's say the cursor is up here right now, and I want to go to this specific V in value. So I would activate Code Ace Jumper and type the letter V, and now we can see that every V on the screen was annotated with another letter of the alphabet. So in this case, in order to get the one that I wanted to get to, we press B, and we're there. This next extension is called Rewrap, and it's for when you're typing out long comments and you want them to be wrapped. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here so that you can see that I have a ruler set up at 80 characters, but I've typed a line that extends long beyond that. When I run Rewrap, what it does is it will wrap the lines for me, and it can also handle lists nicely. So let's say I do 1, 2, and 3 here. When I run Rewrap, it's not going to try to cram all of these onto one line because it recognizes that they're a list. So now if I had 1 and then a long comment after it, it will keep that indentation level too. This next extension is called Bookmarks. It's relatively straightforward. It's just like a bookmark in a book. It lets you quickly navigate somewhere, and these can just be arbitrary locations. So if I set a bookmark here and I set a bookmark here, then I can toggle between them. And where this really shines, a scenario where I like it is, let's say you're in a long code file and you find yourself navigating between a couple of functions. Maybe you need to cross-reference them for whatever reason. Just put bookmarks on them. And that way you can scroll through here and maybe you say, okay, yeah, let's take this code down to the other function, and let's go back up to here and just take the end of that call and paste it into this function too. Bookmarks can be great for that. The next extension is called Transformer, and it has lots of different ways of transforming lines. So let's look at the simplest one, which is just to sort lines ascending. So this will put it in the order Adam, Bob, Carol. We could also reverse that. So now it's Carol, Bob, Adam. And then there's something that's relatively interesting here that I've found some scenarios for over the years. It's unique lines. And to show you a simple example, let's say we had Adam there multiple times and we wanted to run unique lines. Now we only have it there once. One of the ways that I might use this, and this might sound somewhat contrived, but I've actually needed to do this before, I'll search for example, all of the times that I'm using an extension library called Lodash in my JavaScript project, and then I copy paste some of those results into a buffer here. Now I use multiple cursors to get just the name of the function after Lodash here, and I end up with all of them. But I only want to find out the ones that I'm using without seeing the same ones multiple times. That's where I'll use unique lines, and now I have just 16 functions that I end up using here. Maybe I also want to sort them ascending so that I can look through them more easily. This next section is about code formatters, which aren't technically always an extension or always an external program. It could be built into your editor. But I think code formatters are great because they let everyone on your team, or even just yourself, write code however you want and not have to worry about how it gets outputted. So for example, let's say we write our code like this, but somebody else writes their code with it all on one line. When we go to save this or format it, it will get converted into the format that the whole team might expect. If you ever find yourself manually doing this, where you say, okay, let's put this on the new line and let's get the spacing just right, and let's delete that and put this over here, that's when you should just be using a formatter, because that's essentially just lost time. For code that you find yourself typing out a lot, you can use snippets. These are essentially just text replacements, and you can even parameterize them. So for example, I find myself using a library called Lodash quite a lot in JavaScript. So I made impl as an import Lodash. And when I press enter, it just types out that whole line. And as I mentioned, you can parameterize these. So another one that I have is stringify. When I press enter here, it actually gives me 2 different selections. So now if I type something like some object, we can see that it put it in both spots. And when I press tab, it moves to the end of the line. I even use this when I'm not coding. So for example, every day when I start my stream, I have a today command, and I might toggle over to Friday and say something like Adam is doing a demo. Whenever you find yourself typing something quite a lot, and again, this doesn't even necessarily mean you need to refactor. Every JavaScript file that needs Lodash needs to have this line in it. So if it's something you find yourself typing, yeah, make a snippet for it. Let's combine many of those things that we showed in this video, and I'm going to do this at regular speed, but I'm going to talk about this at the end here. So we're going to come up with our list of names that we had, and we're going to join this into an array. I need this to be in JavaScript, so I'm going to use the command palette here in order to make this JavaScript code. I want to use this Lodash function called for each, and we're going to iterate over each name. This is all being done with snippets right now. And then I want all the names to be capitalized, so I'm going to use the VSCode jumper to jump back to here and just capitalize them all, and then format the file to what I expect. The important part for any of what I just showed is awareness that you can even do those things and then figuring out when to incorporate them. And this is a lot of what I talked about in the philosophy of efficiency video. I know it looks daunting to see something like that if you're new to development, but the point is that there is a lot of ways you can do things more efficiently and then not have to focus so much on how you're doing things, but rather what you're doing. I hope you learned something watching this video. Thank you very much for watching.